Hello everyone, it's E. Today's video is going to have a little bit more of a serious tone as we're going to be discussing some real problems in the USA and around the world. I want to be clear very early on in this video in saying that I believe Black Lives Matter and I support the BLM movement. I've not really been in a position to donate money and stuff like that, but I have been doing small things that I can do, like signing petitions and participating in marches in my local community. And I know that's not much. That's like nothing. That's minimal. But I still encourage everyone out there to do those same things and more if you're able. Basically, whatever you can do to show the Black community that you care about them and that you're listening, and that we're not going to let this movement die. I also want to be clear that I do think that there is a systemic problem in our country with law enforcement. We are supposed to have a legal system and a justice system in our country, and people are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But police officers around the country have been acting as the judge, jury, and executioner when responding to calls and when interacting with civilians. They've been acting as vigilantes rather than officers of the law. And this is a pattern of behavior. And in some senses, it seems like this is getting worse day by day. But really, what I think it is that it's been happening for a really long time now, constantly. And it's just now with the 24-hour-a-day news media cycle, with social media, and just the momentum of the BLM movement, that we're hearing these stories and learning the names of those people who have become victims of police brutality. And I also want to be clear in saying that while white people, such as myself, certainly have run-ins with the police, we do not face the same discrimination and profiling, and we are not being killed in the same numbers and with the same impunity. Now, while I think it's absolutely vital to address injustice on a national scale, we also need to address our local governments to make changes. But even more than that, we need to address the prejudices that we hold in our own hearts. At this point in the video, I need to make clear that I am speaking to my fellow white people only. I think it's really easy for us to judge others and even judge historical figures for having backwards ways of thinking about Black people and other minorities. I have heard white people claim that they're, for example, a better person than George Washington simply because they don't own slaves and Washington did. Listen, you don't own slaves first and foremost because it is not an option for you. You not owning slaves isn't some personal moral decision that you made. Society decided, after far too long a time, that owning slaves was not going to be a part of our country's economy anymore. And you cannot claim to be a better person than anyone else for that. No, you actually need to do some hard work and some soul searching. You need to face yourself and the prejudices that you have and address them. You can't simply say, well, I don't own slaves, or I have Black friends, or I share pro-Black Lives Matter articles on Facebook, and not continually look inward to see what biases you may still be holding on to. And we white people also need to stop sitting by and listening to people around us say disparaging things about our Black neighbors. We need to stop making excuses for those people. We can't be silent, and we need to address it when we hear it. There's no excuse for that type of thinking anymore, and those people will never learn to be any better if they think that their peers agree with them, because we're not arguing with them. Again, I'm speaking to my fellow white people. If you look back in your own life, you can probably think of a time when you thought or said something that was racially insensitive. Maybe it was a joke in poor taste, perpetuating a stereotype, maybe even like this subconscious feeling of superiority about your culture. I don't know. But I think most white people who are adults in the year 2020 were probably taught something racist by a classmate, a family member, a teacher, or someone else at some point in their life. I know I was. I grew up hearing racist stuff all the time. Jokes sometimes, but other times it wasn't a joke. And I hate to say that I believed some of those things for a time. And I only shed that poison from my life when I had people in my life who embraced diversity, who called out bad behavior when they saw it. And honestly, just from getting to know different minorities and just seeing that, what I was looking at with them didn't match up with the crap I was hearing about them. So, I also think shows like Family Guy, which were really popular when I was in middle school, kind of perpetuated those stereotypes, and because they were chock full of racially motivated humor. And some people may say that stuff is harmless, but to impressionable kids, those jokes were instructive. I remember the YouTube humor of 2006, 7, 8, 9, like that type of era. There was a parody song of I Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas, and it was called I'm a Korean. And the whole music video was just racist jokes about Asian people. And there's a version of that song still available on YouTube today with over 2 million views and far more likes than dislikes. And that's just, to me, one small example of the racism that we were constantly taught growing up. We were supposed to find it funny, and I hate to say that in those days, sometimes I did think it was funny. I sometimes did think that Family Guy and music videos and stuff like that on YouTube were funny, even though they were really offensive. And it was because it was all part of this culture that we were living in, which was a culture of shock value, of being politically incorrect, of being offensive. And a lot of people fell into it. And so I think that we all, again, white people, we all need to look inside ourselves, look into our past, and be honest about the dumb stuff we used to entertain. And if we have forgiven ourselves for laughing at that racist garbage, or for tolerating it, or for not speaking out against it, then we can't keep holding other people hostage with their past mistakes either, and we should be able to forgive them as well. You have changed. You know that you have changed. We need to be able to apply that same grace that we applied to ourselves to others. We can't point out the speck in one person's eye when we have a log in our own eye, And today there are still some small ways in which I know I need to continue to check my privilege. There may be microaggressions that I still don't understand the impact of, but it is not Black people's responsibility to educate us on those things. It's not fair to them to expect them to teach us how not to be racist. We must remain vigilant and call out problematic behavior in each other. Listen, some people have persisted in this crappy racist attitude for far too long, and some people haven't learned at all because they refuse. We need to play our part in eliminating those beliefs from our society, but honestly, at this point, there's no excuse for it. The people who still think those things are just being willfully ignorant of the problems that Black people in America face. If they won't be taught, then they need to be publicly shamed or worse. I don't know what would be the appropriate course of action, but there need to be serious consequences for the people who relish in and contribute to the suffering of minorities in America. We need to be able to tell the difference between people who need gentle correction, who are open to learning, and who want to change to be better people day by day, and the people who have their head in the sand, refusing to acknowledge the ways in which the system is broken while Black people pay the price, and who allow hatred to flourish in their hearts. And we need to deal with each of those groups of people accordingly. I am hopeful that things in our country can and will get better, but it won't get better if we white people don't wake up and start addressing racism at its source. Please pray and consider ways in which you can help raise awareness and solve problems. Don't be content to just not be a racist yourself. And don't waste your time defending yourself, saying, well, I'm not that kind of person. That's nothing to be proud of. Not being a racist is like the absolute bare minimum. And frankly, none of us care. And none of it matters if society doesn't change. Let's not let this movement die out. Let's keep the energy going. Black Lives Matter. Bye, guys.